Everybody, welcome to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. We've got a great live Q&A for you today, and the topic is vitamin B12. If you missed Tuesday's show, make sure you go back and check that out. We did a total breakdown, everything you need to know, including how to tell if you're deficient, what are the symptoms, what kinds of supplements are best to take, what kinds of doses are best to take, what kinds of lab testing is necessary to help you identify vitamin B12 deficiency, and so much more. So check that crash course out. We'll put a link below in the show notes for you to do that. Now let's dive into your questions. Let's see here. How much vitamin B12 is recommended in the methylated form? Lynn is asking. So it depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're just trying to correct a standard deficiency, Lynn, anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 micrograms. We go even as high as 10,000 micrograms per day. Ideally, if you're doing a methylated form of B12 and you have a history of GI inflammation or stomach damage, you want to take that in a sublingual form. So one of those that you can suck on underneath your tongue. It'll absorb into your bloodstream through your cheeks, and that way it'll bypass any of that damage you have in your gut. Let's see here. Having chronic low hemoglobin and red blood cells, I ruled out B vitamin deficiency and iron. Can it be that my body has issues producing erythropoietin from the kidneys? That tells the body to produce red blood cells. It's possible. Have you had that measured? Do you have kidney dysfunction? Do you have a history of low GFR or low kidney markers? That may be an avenue that you want to explore with your doctor. How did you rule out B vitamin deficiency? Because that, in my experience, is where most doctors actually even get it wrong. They're running serum lab tests, and serum lab tests for vitamin B12 are highly inaccurate. And one of the reasons why is you have liver storage of B12, and if you are measuring your blood or your serum in a deficiency state, the liver will redistribute its B12 storage into the bloodstream, giving you a false normal looking test. So you got to be careful on how you're determining that deficiency when it comes to B12. Let's see here. Is it okay to use a coffee and you mean enema? Because you said coffee anemia. So maybe it's auto spell. But coffee enema to fix leaky gut. Well, I have AFib. Coffee enemas don't fix leaky gut. Coffee enemas will help you have a bowel movement. They'll help with some detoxification. They can be beneficial in other ways, but they do not fix leaky gut. What fixes leaky gut is understanding what causes leaky gut and then addressing those causes in yourself. Medina, you should check out our crash course on leaky gut. Maybe we can put a link up for you and do a deeper dive, because coffee enemas don't fix leaky gut. Let's see. Brandon, does alcohol consumption deplete your B12 in the liver? It can, absolutely. Alcohol depletes all the B vitamins, not just B12, but definitely can deplete B12. Is eye twitching associated with vitamin B12 deficiency? Not typically. If somebody's got eye twitching, if we're talking about like, what do we suspect first in terms of nutrition? One of two things, either a magnesium deficiency or an electrolyte imbalance. That could be potassium, sodium chloride, those types of things. So all that can be measured, and would encourage you to get that checked out. What some people do is just take some magnesium, anywhere from 400 to 600 milligrams a day. And if the eyelid twitching goes away, it's a winner. I've heard that adding methyl groups to the body is not always a good idea. What's your favorite form of B12 supplement? I don't know that I would agree with the generalization that adding methyl groups to the body is not a good idea. You eat methyl every day in your food, and so I don't know why that would be a problem. That being said, because methyl. What is a methyl group? It's carbon attached to three, or it's three hydrogens attached to a carbon. You get a lot of that in your food. Now that being said, best form of vitamin B12 sometimes depends on the person. I find methylcobalamin to be one of the most effective forms. Now, some people don't react well to methylcobalamin. They have a reaction. And the people that I generally see react to B12, methylcobalamin specifically, are those that are in mold. Those are they're dealing with mold or struggling with mold. So in situations like that, there's another form of B12. It's a natural to the body. It's called hydroxycobalamin. So either one of those two would be good choices regardless. I've been on, I don't know what SI-methyl is. I've been on SI-methyl for several years, about once a week. My B12 numbers are really high. Also, iron is very high. Any recommendations? So I don't know what SI-methyl is. I'm assuming that's some kind of a supplemental product that you might be taking. If your B12 is high in your serum because you're taking B12, that's pretty typical. You can make B12 in the serum go up really quickly. I could give you B12 today. I could give you 10,000 today and test your blood tomorrow and it'd be high. That doesn't mean toxicity. As far as your iron is concerned, if you're not taking iron and your iron is high, there are reasons why we sometimes see iron high. It's possible you're dehydrated when you get your blood drawn. That sometimes can cause iron to be elevated. But additionally, iron can be high predominantly in a condition called hemochromatosis, Jane. And I don't know if you've ever been tested for that, but if your iron has always been high, kind of chronically over the life of your knowledge, then you might want to talk to your doctor about testing for hemochromatosis, because too high of a level of iron can be problematic. Iron is oxidative at high amounts and can create issues. Can B12 help with sweaty palms? It's not one of the primary symptoms that we would see. Sweaty palms usually associated with the sympathetic dominance. And there are a lot of things that can drive that. I'm injecting methylcobalamin 5,000 once a month. I have celiac. I'm grain-free, gluten and lactose-free. Is that too much? 5,000 is it milligrams or micrograms? If it's milligrams once a month, it's probably not going to hurt you. The best thing to do, to know for sure, is to get an INA test done, an intracellular nutrition analysis, to see if it's hitting the mark. But if it's once a month at 5,000 milligrams, it's not necessarily going to give you a toxic issue. High levels of serum B12, but I'm not able to get it into the cell. I don't do well with methyl groups due to anxiety. B6 level was elevated also, and say the testing that you did, Judith, is not accurate. That test, that company for testing micronutrients is, well, I'll just say it. It's, in my opinion, it's a piss poor evaluation of nutritional status. So I wouldn't rely on that particular technology to measure nutrition status. Have you tried hydroxycobalamin? Some people that don't do well with methyl do really well with hydroxy, and that might be another option for you. And several of you have asked about high B12 when you're not supplementing with B12. Check your liver. If your liver's damaged, if your liver's fatty, if you've got an inflammatory process happening around your liver stores B12, and when it's being damaged, it will release that B12 and elevate your serum values, and that's an artificial elevation. So if you've got high B12, get your liver checked if you're not supplementing. My daughter-in-law asked me about the health benefits of an IUD for birth control. What kind of IUD? There are ones that release hormones, and there are ones that are kind of a copper design. So if you can give me a better clarity, I can give you a better answer, Donna. Do I have to stop B12 supplementation if I'm having a plasma amino acid test? No. B12 should not, affect tremendously your amino acid levels. If MMA is high, would that mean that one could have B12 deficiency? Yes. Methylmalonic acid elevations. There's a particular enzyme that metabolizes methylmalonyl CoA. is B12 dependent. And so if you have high MMA, that is a sign of vitamin B12 deficiency. Can be. Now, it can also be a sign of kidney damage, because kidney dysfunction also can cause an elevation in your MMA. So you make sure your doctor's looking at your kidney as well. Can you take B12 liquids? You can, but I don't like them, mainly because the vast majority of brands I've ever looked at have preservatives that I don't care for, or have flavoring agents that are derived from GMO corn. You know, it's very common to see that even in some of the lozenges. It's why we make our own B12 lozenges with cherry, natural cherry, acerola cherry, and birchwood xylitol, because most of them are erythritol or mannitol, or natural flavors that are actually corn in disguise. And that, you know, we don't like to do the corn. Let's see here. Can B12 deficiency be a cause of tachycardia? Not typically, Melinda. Typically, with tachycardia, magnesium would be more common, calcium, potassium, CoQ10 deficiency would all be kind of more common possibilities around what I've seen in cases of tachycardia caused by nutrient deficit. Why do liver cirrhosis require B12 supplementation? I don't know who told you that. It's not a requirement per se. It's not a bad idea, because if the liver is cirrhotic, it's, you know, its storage of nutrition is poor, and then the liver's inflamed. And so in that regard, you know, B12 is a B vitamin with a very short half-life, and your liver does store about 18 months worth of B12. So if your diet's not accommodating, you still have a backup plan. And when your liver's broken, your backup plan goes to the wayside. For somebody with a genetic CBS deficiency, so you mean cystathione beta synthase is what that is. What homocysteine values do you consider within normal range? Same. I don't change the reference range whether or you do or don't have a CBS, and it's not a deficiency. You don't have a genetic CBS deficiency. You have a genetic CBS mutation, or polymorphism. You just have a different gene for CBS, and that may work less efficiently. Those of you that don't know, so it's not a deficiency, a genetic deficiency. It's a genetic variance, and it's your unique gene. And you have to, all of you watching this, remember, your genes aren't evil. Your genes aren't bad. You don't have bad genes. Quit running all these genetic tests and having doctors and practitioners try to blame your crappy genes for your problems, because it doesn't work. I know that because I used to be guilty of doing it. I used to be one of those doctors, and I did it for 5 years. I actually was one of the first doctors to ever bring genetic testing for nutritional variances to the market. I did this over 20 years ago. It doesn't work. Clinically speaking, it's not going to solve your problems. If you have a genetic variance in CBS that slows down your CBS gene, all that really means for you is you don't want to get into a situation that hinders your methylation ability. And then what are those situations? Exposing yourself to toxic chemicals, mold in the background, eating gluten if you're gluten sensitive, eating processed foods, drinking a lot of alcohol, because these are the things that your body has to detoxify from. And that whole process or pathway of CBS is for making glutathione. So what happens is you convert homocysteine through the CBS enzyme using vitamin B6, because vitamin B6 is the car keys that start the motor of CBS, and convert CBS into glutathione. Ultimately, that's the pathway, or bile acids, one of the two. And so you have to make sure that you're supporting that pathway by having a lifestyle and a diet that's conducive to its good functioning. And some people use a vitamin B6 if you're just to support that gene. You can do that. It's not going to solve your problems, but you can do it. If you're going to use B6, though, for long periods of time at higher doses, make sure you're using something called pyridoxal 5-phosphate, P5P. Do not use pyridoxine hydrochloride at high doses for long periods of time. It's a lot harder for your body to handle that type of vitamin B6. So be aware of that. Have excess high B12, twice as high for over 8 years. So I think I mentioned, Angel, earlier that, ask your doctor to check your liver, do an ultrasound, and make sure you don't have a liver problem stemming, because that's one of the most common reasons for high B12 in the absence of supplementation. Is it okay to take vitamin B12 like methylcobalamin with cancer? Yes. It's absolutely perfectly fine. Matter of fact, not so much skin cancer, depending on who your doctor is, but a lot of cancers where they're using chemo will tank your B12 and your folate, and that's one of the reasons why people going through cancer treatment lose their hair. It's one of the reasons why they have severity of gut problems, because when you're depleting B12 and folate, your gut can't recover faster than it's being damaged. There's no contraindication to using B12 with cancer. It doesn't enhance cancer. It doesn't make cancer worse. I took 5,000 milligrams. That's a lot. Are you sure you don't mean micrograms? You shouldn't take 5,000 milligrams on a daily basis. It's too high. I mean, generally that's the dose that would be injected, once a month in an individual. But again, that's probably why you got anxiety. It was too much. B12 it helps make energy, and sometimes energy can be perceived as anxiety, especially if you go too far with it. So maybe try a much lower quantity, Jody. Somewhere in the 2,000 microgram mcg range, and see if you tolerate that. Remember, in doing it once a week is a bad idea, in my opinion, because B12 is a very short half-life. It's out of your system in a couple of days. So if you do it once a week, you might get a big, massive dose for a day or two, but then you're going 5 days with no B12, right? So it's a water-soluble vitamin, and so if you're going to take it orally, you need to take it lower doses consistently versus taking a big mega dose in one day and waiting a week or two. Will vitamin B help detox from radiation from heart stress tests? Well, the B vitamins in general, Barbara, are helpful in that they provide a source of methylation, detoxification. There are several detoxification pathways that the B vitamins play roles in to help get stuff out of your body when you're going in for medical testing and they want to use different dyes or other chemicals. It's never a bad idea to support yourself with extra nutrition, including B vitamins. If you have any suggestions for a low MCHC, that's MCHC's mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration. I mean, that in and of itself doesn't mean one thing in particular. A low MCHC could mean you're low in copper, could mean you're low in iron, could mean you're low in vitamin B6. So more than anything, I mean, you could certainly use those nutrients supplementally, but getting more definitive as to why that MCHC is low in my opinion, is a better route to take. So having those nutrient levels checked would be a first good smart step. Does blood serum test B12 correctly? No, Denise, I think I've answered that. Blood is very tricky. Serum tests are very inaccurate. Intracellular nutrient analysis is probably the best way to assess it. Outside of that, homocysteine, methylmalonic acid, otherwise known as MMA, and something else called MCV, mean corpuscular volume, are kind of roundabout ways to try to assess B12. They're not as accurate, but they can give you some insight. Will intracellular testing come to Europe anytime soon? We're working on it. Be patient. Why would a person have a valine deficiency? Lots of reasons. I mean, there's 3 primary reasons people develop deficiency of a nutrient. One is you're not eating enough of it. Valaine's an amino acid predominantly found in meat. It's what's known as a branch chain amino acid. People that are at risk for deficiency would be women who are pregnant, but also people who are exercising, especially weightlifting. These are amino acids that you need to replenish and repair muscles from exercise. So athletes, people with aggressive exercise programs, or pregnant women are all at risk, a greater risk. But again, back to the 3 reasons. So 1, you're not eating enough. 2, you could also have a problem in your gut that's not allowing you to properly absorb the amino acids. And that's typically, that kind of problem manifests as low acid. So those of you that are taking Nexium or Protonics or other types of antacid medications, you put yourself at risk for protein malabsorption. And then beyond that, you could have an underlying situation or condition that's driving the greater need for valine than what might typically be. And, classic example there is just more exercise. What if you're allergic to cobalt? You can't be allergic to cobalt because cobalt's in your body. It's essential in that regard. If you had a patch test on your back and you came back allergic to cobalt, then here's some things you need to understand about patch testing. Number 1, they rub your skin with GMO corn-based alcohol, ethanol, before they apply the patch, or before they apply the poke on your skin. So, I mean, you could have had just simply a reaction to the alcohol as when your back was stuck, that alcohol permeated into your skin and caused a flare. You could also have been reacting to some of the components of the stick itself. So the needle that they're using to stab you for those skin prick tests, some people have reactions to. You could have been wearing a lotion, and when they penetrated your skin, it gave you a false positive. So there's a lot of error potential with the skin patch test. So I would ask your doctor, if you're really concerned, ask him to test your IgE levels from your blood to get confirmation. Because, you need B12. You'll die without it, and it has cobalt. Is there any good B12 shot that releases slowly during a whole month? No. No, not really. There's no kind of delayed wrapping around that liquid that you inject into your muscle that slows down its absorption into your system. So no sustained release delivery mechanism for injectable B12. Let's see. How much B12 is too much daily? I eat beef daily and get B complex. I look for small B complex, but with meat, it's, I don't know what you mean, CA24. Some docs talk about cancer risk with high B12. There's no evidence of any increased cancer risk with high B12, so I really don't know what these doctors are talking about. But how much is too much daily? I mean, you got to understand that registered, or the recommended daily allowance, which is the minimum number to keep a person from developing overt disease, is inadequate for most people, because we're not just trying to prevent overt disease, we're trying to optimize our health. And so how much is too much? I would argue it just depends on the person, their height, their weight, what they do, and how they eat, and if they have pre-existing disease, and what kind of behaviors that they have that might deplete them of vitamin B12, like alcohol consumption, etc. So it's not one, but if you're looking for a general range for supplementation, anywhere from 250 micrograms up to as much as 10,000 micrograms a day. But I mean, that's a pretty wide range. But going back to it, depends on the individual. I'm a fan of the test, don't guess philosophy. I have RA since 2-year impact on my lower spine, stiffness almost every time, taking anti-inflammatory tablets, but isn't helped much. Still so much of the pain. Read No Grain, No Pain and follow it. If you've got RA, start there. Start with my book, start with the diet, the 31-day diet, but extend it beyond 31 days. And if it works well for you, you'll have a solution. If it doesn't, come back and ask me that question again in 31 days and let us know how you're doing. I'm taking a multivitamin. Should I stop if I'm going for B12 lab? Again, if you're measuring your B12 in the serum, you're going to get a false elevation if you're taking a B12 supplement. It's not really a false elevation, but serum is very responsive to supplemental B12. So you'll get a high serum level. Serum levels, though, are not accurate indicators of your B12 status. Now, if you're doing an INA test, there's no need to stop your multivitamin before the test, because the INA is measuring intracellular quantity, and those cells have a life cycle of 6 months. So you're getting a 6-month average. So those supplements that you're taking are not going to immediately or acutely affect an INA type of test. Started eating anticonvulsants in 2008 at the age of 12 years. Absence seizures, but nobody noticed my tongue having cracks over time, glossitis. How can I reverse it along with B complex and high fat diet? I mean, that's part of it, because the seizure medications deplete B vitamins. Go check out our article on Gluten-Free Society about that topic to get a little bit more detailed information. Yeah, so serum B12, so spirulina B12 is not the same bioavailable form of vitamin B12, and yes, it can artificially elevate your serum levels, but your body can't use it very effectively. My B vitamin levels are all normal in range. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record today. Those of you who are getting your B vitamin levels checked on serum tests, it's not a good way to assess your B vitamins. Go get an INA done. Now, if you're talking about your iron, if your iron levels are low or below normal, I mean, you might be anemic. You might have an iron deficiency anemia. It could mean a lot of different things, Bonnie. Some people develop iron deficiency as a result of blood loss, meaning if you have a monthly cycle and you're losing blood, on a monthly basis, that can deplete your iron. Some people have occult blood loss, meaning they've damaged their stomach or upper small intestine and they're losing blood as a result of that. And so they're pooping their blood out and they don't even know it, because when blood comes out in your stool, if it's from your stomach or upper intestine, it turns brown, it oxidizes, so you can't see blood in the toilet, so to say. But that's called occult blood loss. Your doctor should be able to measure you for any kind of occult blood loss if you're trying to determine why those iron levels are low. And then the other aspect is just your diet. Are you eating adequate quantities? So many people following a plant-based diet don't get enough iron. And, not saying that that's what you're doing, but it's just something to consider. So back to the IUD question, the intrauterine device has hormones, the brand. So I don't recommend those. Those are dangerous. Those synthetic, horse urine derived steroids, those can be really problematic. So, I understand not wanting to have if you don't want to have a baby, if you're using an IUD, but if it's for birth control, you might consider a different option. There are lots of other options for birth control besides IUD. But if they're trying to tell her there's a benefit because of the hormones in it, you find another doctor and look at bioidentical hormones. But those IUDs are not bioidentical hormones, and so those synthetic versions, just in my opinion, are very problematic. Are cracks in the tongue always B12 deficiency, or could it be something else? It could be other B vitamins. I mean, B2, B3, B12, folate can all cause kind of a glossitis and a strawberry or a cracking of the tongue. So it could be any one of those. If it can take 2 years to fix a peripheral neuropathy with B12, how long could it normally take to resolve a hand tremor? About the same length of time, because, peripheral neuropathy, it's a tremor, it's a neuropathy. It's just, instead of it being a sensory neuropathy, it's a motor neuropathy, and it takes about the same length of time for those to heal. Does vitamin C interact with B12? Not directly. So there's no contraindication of taking them together. Larry, will a neuroendocrine cancer of the pancreas cause you not to absorb B vitamins? Well, it certainly can affect, depending on the location of the tumor and how it's impacting your pancreatic function. It can, if your pancreas is inflamed and damaged, it's not going to properly produce bicarbonate or other pancreatic enzymes that help you break your food down and get access to the nutrients in your food. So it certainly is a possibility. Nina, is a positive ANA always lupus? No. Positive ANA has many meanings. Generally, a positive ANA is typically autoimmunity, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's always lupus. Can megaloblastic anemia have anemia been reversed after long celiac disease delayed diagnosis? It can be reversed, yeah, even after a long delayed diagnosis. Is also vitamin B12 associated with GAD65? GAD65 antibodies, so those of you that may not know what those are, GAD65 antibodies are a common trigger for cerebellar ataxia, which is a disease where people lose their balance. It's largely linked to gluten exposure. And gluten can cause a vitamin B12 deficiency. And sometimes you can have an ataxia as a result of a B12 deficiency. And sometimes you can have an ataxia as a result of gluten-induced damage in antibody production. And sometimes you can have an ataxia for both reasons. So you have to keep in mind, we're all entitled to more than one problem. Your ataxia may be a combination of variable factors and not just one thing. And that's why it's important to work with your doctor to not just, be quick to blame it on only one thing. Anyone who has ataxia should have their nutritional status checked. There are a lot of nutritional deficiencies that can cause nerve damage, and including ataxia. So if you don't know why you have ataxia, hands down, you should absolutely have your essential nutrients checked by your doctor. Can you tell the role of raised uric acid in metabolic syndrome? Well, I mean, uric acid is a very potent anti-inflammatory. It's a very important byproduct of the body's metabolism. But too much of it can lead to gout, right? Uric acid crystal formation in the toes or ears or elbows is what they call gouty tophi formation. But in metabolic syndrome, a lot of these individuals with metabolic syndrome are inflamed, and uric acid is an anti-inflammatory. So the body there may be a role in the body producing more uric acid in an effort to try to combat metabolic syndrome itself. And so getting your metabolic syndrome under control, and I've seen this in a number of cases where people change their diet and lifestyle, their uric acid naturally drops as simultaneously their metabolic syndrome diagnosis goes away. MMA in range, but not optimal. Do I need to increase my B12? Possibly. It's really hard to say. Because again, MMA is part of the B12 analysis, but it's not, it's not the end all be all of assessment for B12. So if it's on the lower end, I mean, you certainly won't hurt yourself by taking a little extra B12. And potentially having your MMA remeasured in a month or two to see what happens. I've heard that optimal level of homocysteine 7, and that anything higher than 9 is worrisome, and that's relatively true. But what about low homocysteine around a 5? 5's not bad. I'd say you're generally okay, but just so if you've got really super low homocysteine like 1, 2, so, it may be necessary for you to do a methylation panel where you're looking at more than just homocysteine. There's some other chemical byproducts of that pathway that could point to some additional problems if your homocysteine levels are too low, but I wouldn't call 5 too low. For testing, what are your thoughts of blood spot and saliva testing versus serum? In which, if you're talking about vitamin B12, I don't think there's a serum saliva test for vitamin B12. As far as blood spot, I don't recommend blood spot for B12 either. But I'm not sure in what regard you're asking me. Are you asking me about B12 testing or some other parameter of testing? I was diagnosed with liver hemangioma. What's the best B12 that I can take? Either methyl or hydroxycobalamin. What can I do to repair toe worsen this condition? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking there. What can I do to repair toe? Is your toe damaged? What can I do to repair to worsen the condition? You got to re-ask the question. I just don't understand what you're asking me. But methylcobalamin or hydroxycobalamin. We can put links up for both of those, can't we, Mel? Yeah, for Micheline. I don't know if I said your name right, but if I didn't, forgive me. Is nutritional yeast an adequate B complex supplement? No. If you have antibodies to parietal cells or intrinsic factor, can you reverse the damage to these cells, or will injections be needed for life? So first of all, you could do sublingual. A lot of doctors don't understand that sublingual is just as effective as injections. So if your other doctor has told you have pernicious anemia, you need to inject B12 for the rest of your life, consider lozenges, but also monitor your levels over time to make sure everything's working out okay for you. So can you correct the damage caused by pernicious anemia? Yes, it's possible if you know what's causing or driving the pernicious anemia. Remember, anemia like that type of anemia is an autoimmune condition, and autoimmunity has triggers. Food can be a trigger. Gluten is probably the most well-studied related to pernicious anemia, but other foods could do it too. Chemical exposures can do it as well. Microbial imbalances can do it. So different types of gut bugs that are growing amok. And then number 4 is nutritional deficit can contribute to autoimmunity. So if you haven't had those things checked as triggers, you need to, if you're trying to really get your body optimized. And Gloria, your question about PBC and antimitochondrial antibodies, same goes for you. You need to get checked for why you're having antibody reactions. It's autoimmunity. So what's driving it? There's not a vitamin per se that fixes autoimmunity unless the vitamin deficiency is linked as one of your triggers to autoimmunity. Vitamin D deficiency is commonly linked to autoimmune problems, but it's not the only one. Let's see here. Go down on the left for me. Did I miss that question? That very first one? Nope, down more. Right there. A little up higher. Sorry. Where do fibroids in women really come from? They say it's a mystery and not really much is known as to why. Nutritionally, I've seen iodine deficiency be a major contributing factor. Probably the biggest one for fibroid problems. I've also seen chemical exposures, especially chemical exposures where the chemicals are estrogen mimics. So pesticides, plastics, which, phthalates, which are found in plastics as a plasticizer. So all those can contribute. Thoughts regarding magnesium stearate? It's fine. There's no harm in it. There's like an old video on the internet of magnesium stearate being evil and horrible, and it's nonsense. Magnesium stearate is perfectly fine as an additive in a supplement. It's actually one of the better flow agents. When you're mixing powders, it's not like mixing liquids. When you're mixing powders, you have to have an equal distribution of of ingredients. And part of the way you do that is through what's known as a flow agent. Flow agents help ensure that each pill has the same dose. And, without flow agents, what you would get if you had multiple ingredients in a product is you would get products that might have, 10 milligrams of magnesium and 20 milligrams of calcium in one pill, and then 5 milligrams of calcium and 3 milligrams of magnesium in another pill, et cetera, et cetera. So in order to properly mix powders, you have to have flow agents, and magnesium stearate it's an inert flow agent that doesn't do any human harm. I did your intracellular testing, loved it. How do I raise asparagine? Eat more meat. You can also supplement with asparagine directly. Either one of those things. Check your protein levels as a total. Are you getting approximately 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, Misty? And if you are, great. If you're still low on asparagine, you might consider supplementation. Let's see here. Kathy says, "Hi, Dr. Osborne. Recently discovered you, and I believe I'm gluten intolerant. I have a lot of pain in my chest area, left side. Recently had echo, stress test, and blood work. My doc says everything looks great. I'm vegan 6 years, so I'm already limited. In the past 10 days, I'm eating very bland vegetables and fruit only. My chest is feeling a lot better, but still some pressure every once in a while." It's hard to say, Kathy. You've got cardiovascular clearance, but you could be malnourished. I mean, if you're following a vegan diet, vegan meaning strictly plant-based, no animal product at all, no dairy, no egg, no meat at all, you do run a risk of becoming more nutritionally depleted in certain nutrients that could impact your heart. Predominantly, CoQ10 is rich especially in organ meats, and CoQ10 deficiency could be doing some of that for you. But also certain B vitamins could be playing a role there. I would get checked out. I would get, at the very least, I mean, you could follow up with a GI doctor. I'm not going to discourage that, but ultimately I would have my nutrition status checked, because, the one thing that of the information that you've given me that stands out is that you're on a plant-based vegan diet for 6 years, and that may have caused malnutrition that's leading to your heart not getting what it needs to properly function full time. So check those things out and come back and let me know what happens. Let's scroll down a little bit more. I like this comment. Sandy says, "Ordered your nutrient level testing, and after taking supplements for 2 years, most all my vitamin and nutrient levels look great. Thank you. How do I get enough potassium every day without eating a ton of fruits and vegetables?" I mean, there's nothing wrong with eating fruits and vegetables, unless you're allergic or sensitive to them or have an oxalate problem. But potassium's rich in meat too. You can eat meats that are rich in potassium, and organ meats are one of them. But just a good healthy steak's got potassium in it. So the other thing to consider is using a salt that has potassium in it as well. I mean, because outside of that, you can supplement, but if you're in the U.S., potassium supplementation by law is limited. So you can only get, like, a potassium supplement can only be 99 milligrams per capsule as far as the maximum dose per serving size. So I mean, people need 5,000 milligrams of magnesium a day approximately. So, I mean, you're not going to take 50 magnesium or potassium pills. Most people won't anyway. Jerry's asking, do you see people for mold toxicity? Yes, all the time. MTHFR mutation, what's the best supplement? Yeah, I mean, just take a good methyl folate. You could use our 5-MTHF, Kylie. 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate is what that stands for. We'll put a link up for you. I take 2,000. I don't know what you mean there. IUG is not a measurement that's known to me. I'm just going to assume you mean micrograms. If you take 2,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin, 666 micrograms of adenocobalamin, and 334. That's not clear here. They have, but the bottom line is your product has preservatives. Difficult to find without preservatives. Check out our brand. Check out our hydroxycobalamin. There's no preservatives in it. Does B12 increase eye pressure? No, doesn't increase eye pressure. Why would it increase eye pressure? Let's see, I answered that one. Do you consider value of 13 for homocysteine high? Yes. If it's over 9, it's high. Now, they've recently changed, not recently, in the last many years, they've changed the homocysteine reference range. The original reference range, which in my opinion was more research-backed and based, was changed for normal being up to 9, and they changed it for normal being in some labs as high as 15, and I've seen other labs as high, almost even as high as 20. I think they do that. A lot of times they do these reference range changes based on population studies. And when you're using a sick population, and America is sick, let's face it, America is one of the sickest countries in the world. Say what you want. You can have American pride all you want, which is great, but this country is sick as hell. And they make bad decisions about food, bad decisions about exercise, bad decisions about sleep and sunshine exposure and air and water quality, and we're paying a consequence. And until people wake up to that fact, we'll remain sick, and our reference ranges will continue to expand. And so what will happen, and what has already started to happen, is reference ranges that are supposed to be normal are now reflective of sickness, but they're being called normal, right? So we've normalized illness as a standard because our country is so ill, and the only way out of it is to recognize the whys and to address those. I'm on a carnivore diet but still feel tired when walking upstairs. Am I B12 deficient even though I take CoQ10 zinc? I'm very low on estrogen and high on cortisol. I don't know why you're tired when you walk upstairs, but I mean, it could be. I mean, you could be B12 deficient on a carnivore diet. I've seen that be the case with testing. You could also have another kind of deficiency that might be contributing to your fatigue. It depends. The best thing to do, Sarah, there is just to get tested to get more accurate on the potential as to why. Normocytic, normochromic anemia can be a B12 deficiency. It can also be a folate deficiency. In rare cases, a copper deficiency. It could be a vitamin E deficiency. It could be a vitamin C deficiency. Is your bilirubin, have them check your bilirubin in your direct and indirect bilirubin, because if you've got a hemolytic anemia, those can be normocytic, normochromic. When your red blood cells membranes are too weak and they break prematurely, and sometimes the best way to know if that's happening is bilirubin elevations. What beyond protein, what would you suggest for aggressive bodybuilder training with high carb diet? Why are you training with a high carb diet? Any particular vitamins or minerals that is more needed? Yeah, I mean, glutamine would be good if you're trying to put mass on, if you're trying to build. Extra branched chain amino acids would be great. Creatine monohydrate would be a great supplemental. I mean, those are probably the top 3, honestly. There's a lot of hype in the bodybuilding realm. Most bodybuilders, most famous bodybuilders promote shit, honestly, because they're getting paid to. They're being paid to sell young bodybuilders who they're influencing to buy a bunch of garbage they don't need, filled with a bunch of artificial flavors and colors and sweeteners and other garbage. So a lot of the bodybuilding realm supplements are no good. Just get you a good pure branched chain amino acid, a good pure L-glutamine, and a good pure creatine And that's going to cover a good chunk of your bases if you're just trying to put on some lean mass. How do I fix oral and fine motor issues? You figure out why they're there. If they're autoimmune linked, Diane, go back and watch my crash course on autoimmunity. We've done several of those over the years, but if it's autoimmune, you've got to watch that course and you've got to apply the knowledge in that course. Can we put a link up maybe for our autoimmune class for Diane? The cure for autoimmune disease. I have hereditary hemochromatosis. How do I get adequate protein without eating so much red meat? Yeah, I mean, you can eat non-red meat. You could eat wild game. You could also, depending, take alpha lipoic acid. It's been shown to be helpful in hereditary hemochromatosis for pulling some of that iron down. You might also, if you haven't already, Julie, look at asking your doctor about writing you a script for blood donations or blood draws periodically, once or twice a year, because that's another way to get it down. I mean, medically speaking, that's really the primary way. Can one take L-glutamine daily? I've heard it can increase cancer risks. There's no real great science that shows L-glutamine increases cancer. I mean, if you have cancer, there's some in vitro, which are Petri dish studies that show that cancer cells can use L-glutamine as a fuel, but there's no human studies that show that L-glutamine supplementation in humans increase cancer risk. And there's no real human studies that show contraindication. Now, that being said, make your own decision there. But if I was L-glutamine deficient and had cancer, I would take L-glutamine supplement all day long. This is where I get into testing, right? Test, don't guess. I like this one. Can you schedule a meeting with Bobby Kennedy Jr. and assist him in getting our health improved? Yeah, I'm really excited about the future of health. I think we needed an overhaul. I think we need to see direct-to-pharmaceutical advertising go away. I think it's way too influential. I think those guys, lock, step, and barrel, have so much influence over news reporting and media that you can't get honesty. They also have tremendous control over the medical curriculum in our medical schools, and so you just can't get honesty in medicine these days. I mean, that's not to say that all medical doctors are bad. It's not to say that all doctors are bad. It's just simply to say that there's such a corporate corrupt influence, and I think RFK Jr. is going to do a great job of helping tame that and bring that in. And yeah. Take on spirulina as a source of B12. It's not a complete source of B12, so it's not anything I would recommend. Is gonna correct a B12 deficiency. What nutrient deficiencies can be a cause of fatigue due to nervous system after emotional triggering situation? A lot of them: B5, magnesium, vitamin B1, choline are some of the ones that come to mind first, Valentina. So maybe check out some of those. You can watch our crash courses on those. So, okay, going back to blood spot and saliva, that was more of a general question, not one on nutrition deficiencies. And so the answer to the question is there's not necessarily one method better than another. But it also depends on what it is that you're actually trying to measure. You can, I mean, with blood finger pricks, you can get good thyroid values. You can, you can get good cortisol values in the blood if you do 4 draws and over the course of a day. But it's easier to spit in a cup 4 times a day, so you can get great cortisol values from saliva without having to do 4 separate blood draws. There's just a lot of variability there, so it's just hard to say. I'd say, you give me the exact examples that you're asking about, I can give you a much better answer there. Is a blood level of 380 B12 considered too low? Would it cause symptoms of B12 deficiency? Yes, it would. And yes, it could. 230 is kind of the bottom of the barrel, Sandra. 380, anything really below 400, I would consider, it's probably low. Again, serum's not the greatest evaluation for B12, but if your levels are there and you have the symptoms that match B12, certainly not a dangerous thing for you to take B12 supplementation and see if your symptoms improve. Would a high bun creatinine level be of concern if I eat a high protein diet? No. I mean, one of the problems with blood urea nitrogen is that when you eat more protein, your bun goes up, and that can make your bun creatinine also go up. But also, if you eat a lot of protein, your creatinine can go up. So, I mean, higher protein diets really skew bun and creatinine and the bun creatinine ratio. So just those markers are not the best markers if you're like a carnivore or heavy meat person or heavy high protein diet person, and you're trying to assess your kidney function. There are better markers than those tests. If your like one of them is cystatin C, you could ask your doctor to measure that test, and it's a pretty good indicator of kidney function as well. What should you use for mold toxicity with elevated liver enzymes? The question doesn't make sense to me. It's not to try to insult you. It's just simply to say that you don't do anything for mold toxicity as long as you're living in the mold. I mean, you're not going to detox any amount of supplements that you buy, any amount of tricks that you try are going to fail if you're still being exposed to mold. So the number one rule of any kind of liver detoxification that's caused by mold is to get out of the mold first. Now, once you're out of the mold, there are a lot of things you can do. I mean, there's N-acetylcysteine and glutathione, and there's milk thistle or silymarin. There's calcium D-glucarate. B vitamins are very important for liver detoxification, especially methylated B vitamins. So, I mean, there's a number of things that you can do, but you should prioritize being out of the mold before you make any major attempts at detox. If taking sublingual for pernicious anemia, what dose per day? I mean, 5,000 micrograms a day in a sublingual would be a pretty good place to maybe start, but then get your levels checked periodically in the beginning to see that your levels aren't dropping tremendously, and then adjust your dose accordingly and, work with your doctor to do that. My ferritin used to be considered elevated, 150 to 200. Now the range lifted to like 350. You're talking about the male range because that's what happened. The male range is 350. The female range is less than 150. And no, it's just because males generally are bigger. I heard intermittent fasting can mess with women's estrogen levels. What do you think? Not really. Intermittent fasting, when it's done improperly, Tammy, what the key difference is intermittent fasting versus calorie restriction. A lot of people, when they intermittent fast, they may slate an 8 or a 6 or 5 hour window for all their meals. And what it ultimately happens, this is true of women more so than men, but women, because they're smaller, their stomach's generally smaller, and so they can't eat as many calories as they otherwise would within the window of time that they've allotted for intermittent fasting. So they end up calorically restricting themselves unintentionally. But if you're intermittent fasting without the caloric restriction, it's not going to tend to tremendously affect your estrogen. Can being hormonal imbalance be the cause of tired walking upstairs? A lot of things can be. I mean, carnitine deficiency, CoQ10 deficiency, B vitamin deficiency, vitamin D deficiency. You could be being poisoned. The number one cause of home poisoning is mold. And if you're a year coronavirus, kind of delayed coronavirus, what they call long COVID, most of the cases well, really not most, all of the cases of long COVID I've ever seen were people who were stuck in mold. They got sick, they stayed home, their house had mold, they never recovered because they overexposed themselves to mold because their dose of exposure went up when they stayed home. When you go to work, you at least get out of the house 10 plus hours a day. So if you have mold in your home, you at least have a reprieve away. But if you're now staying in your home, full time, that, a lot of people, that's when they start getting sick. And that's what we've seen, especially over the COVID years. My doctor says that my folate and my B12 levels are normal, but I don't take supplements, and I have MTHFR. I don't understand your question. It doesn't make sense. Your levels are normal, and you don't take supplements. That's good. You're getting it from your food. So what? I'm not sure what your question is. Maybe reword it for me, TD. Can B12 help removing scars in the lung? Probably not. My diet is so strict from mast cell activation syndrome and questions with my liver, I find my test being incorrect. You mean your serum levels were normal. So this goes back to, if your serum levels were normal, you're relying on serum values to detect your levels, and those are inaccurate. So if that's, I don't know, again, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but it seems like that may be it. Check your intracellular levels and get a more accurate assessment. Is there a specific video you have for supplements to help my nephew with high stress of special needs child? Yeah, we have some videos on stress, on dealing and coping and managing and adapting with stress, Melita, that you might want to check out. We'll put a link below here for you. Being female, ferritin is still too high, but the range listed is the male range. Okay. Okay, I think I answered that one already. Okay. Okay, we got anything more on the center? No, that's all. Okay, well, we're there. I think we covered pretty much everything. Yeah. Look, thanks for joining today. Look, if you want to support our mission and what we're about saving 100 million lives, hit that like button and hit that share button, and let's get this information out to as many people as we can so that we can help more people get educated about how to empower themselves to restore their own health. And if you're new to the show and you want to learn more, come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org and sign up there for our free newsletter. We'll send you a bunch of free information about how to navigate autoimmunity and how to navigate chronic inflammation with diet and lifestyle changes and good quality nutrition. And if you want to support our mission financially, please take advantage of our supplement store. We have over 100 different products that are gluten-free, that are of high quality pharmaceutical grade, only the best. And we also offer testing services for those of you trying to seek out how to change your diet and how to supplement accordingly. And you can check all that out. We'll put a link to our shop below. And this week we have a sale. Do we have a code for that? Energy. Okay, Energy. If you use the code Energy and you're in the market for a good vitamin B12 supplement, check out our methylcobalamin or our hydroxycobalamin. Use promo code Energy to get a discount on checkout. And once again, thanks for sharing your Thursday with me. We'll be back here next Tuesday for another Dr. Osborne Zone episode, and again on Thursday next week for a live